Welcome, everyone. We are thrilled that you've decided to join us for our panel discussion during this 2022 Global Oneness Summit. I'm Debra Poneman, founder of Yes to Success Seminars and host for today's panel. The Global Oneness Summit has become kind of like our Earth Day for an awakened humanity. And this year, the theme is birthing a new world. And the theme of our panel is birthing a new world by illuminating the color of your soul. Lots of implications in our title. And before we get going, I'm going to introduce our panelists. First of all, welcome all of you.
Thank you, Debra.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor.
So first, I'm going to read the bio of, which I have right here, the Reverend Dr. Terrlyn Curry Avery. Terrlyn is the creator of pastology, the cutting edge field that focuses on the synergy between pastoring and psychology. She holds a PhD from Hofstra University and a Master's of Divinity from Yale. As a pastologist, as well as a coach, speaker, author, and retreat leader, Reverend Dr., we call her, and she calls herself TLC, Terrlyn Curry Avery, has a unique approach to healing, transformation, and manifestation. She places the emphasis on the journey towards sacred intelligence, the ability to tap into one's internal source in order to move towards intelligent choices. She guides people in a way that their choices honor the sacred, and she helps individuals manifest their own greatness while simultaneously embracing the humanity of those around them. Dr. TLC is also the host of Dismantle Racism, which airs on Talk Radio NYC. She's the author of 2 books, Sacred Intelligence, The Essence of Sacred Selfish and Shared Relationships, and the #1 Amazon bestseller, Dismantling Racism, Healing Separation from the Inside Out. She's also the pastor of Martin Luther King Jr. Community Presbyterian Church in Springfield, Massachusetts, and so much more. Welcome, Reverend Dr. Terrlyn.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Debra.
It's always a joy and a pleasure to spend time with you. Okay, Derek Rydall. Derek Rydall is part of a new generation of spiritual visionaries and thought leaders. Derek is the #1 best-selling author of Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change, which reveals the revolutionary principle, the law of emergence, showing people how to tap into the pattern of perfection in any area of their life and create the right conditions for it to unfold. And also the Abundance Project, 40 Days to More Wealth, Health, Love, and Happiness, where he lays out a time-tested system for activating the abundance principle, which sets you free from the belief that outer conditions determine your life and shows you how to generate everything you need, no matter what conditions you face. Derek's diverse background includes training top executives at Fortune 500 companies in empowered leadership and communications, coaching celebrities and media professionals. I was impressed. And on creating conscious entertainment as a contributor to blogs, a frequent podcast guest, and the host of his own top-rated podcast called Emergence. He shares cutting-edge spiritual principles and success strategies so that you can do your greatest life work and achieve high levels of success. So welcome, Derek.
Thank you, Debra.
And he was just interviewed for another event by a woman named Peggy, and Peggy called me and said, "You're right, he's amazing." So get ready. Okay, Jose Hernandez. Jose was an electrical engineer, a self-described atheist, and a closed-minded skeptic when, just as he was about to turn 50, after a minor accident at work, he was administered medication in the ER that he was severely allergic to. That mundane mistake changed Jose's life forever, as that was the beginning of a journey that shattered every belief in science he had ever held dear, because during that experience in the ER, Jose died. Although he was never an artist, when he came back from death, he began creating art as his attempt at sharing his experience from the other side. He also developed the breakthrough mindfulness practice, inner immersion, which is engineered to help people shed the layers which keep them from connecting with their true selves. To date, Jose has worked with well over 1,000 people, many more. You worked with 1,000 in Chicago. We got to change that up. With the inner immersion modality, and has had success working with people with addiction, PTSD, helping them release blocks, trauma. His transformational art has been exhibited in galleries across the US and Canada and private and corporate collections worldwide, even the prestigious Cleveland Clinic collection, as well as other healing centers. Most recently, he was featured in the #1 Netflix series, Surviving Death. And he appeared on Dr. Oz, as well as other media throughout the country. Welcome, Jose.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
Wow, right? Okay, well, I'm duly
I
impressed.
just want to be quiet, Deborah, and listen to them talk. Can I just do that?
And they want to be quiet and listen to you talk. So fortunately, we all get to talk. So the theme of our panel is Birthing a New Earth by illuminating the color of your soul. So my first question, why don't we start out with Derek? Because you want to listen to the two of them, so I'm starting out with you.
Okay.
If we're going to illuminate our souls, what is a soul? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we all have a lot of different definitions, obviously. For me, I make a distinction between the ultimate self or the real self, what I could also be called the oversoul. And that's a divine idea or a perfect pattern of life or an infinite, unique individualization of life, right? If God had an idea about itself, that would be the real self. And I think of the soul as our relative understanding or discovery or embodiment of who we really are. So the real self doesn't evolve. The oversoul doesn't evolve, but the soul does. So it's an embodiment of all the wisdom and all the knowledge and all the experience as we endeavor to awaken to the larger but infinite self. So it's forever unfolding. And we take that with us, right? And so there's the oversoul or the real self. There's the impression it's made in our consciousness so far called our ever unfolding soul. And then there's the manifestation of that called our life experience, our material body, et cetera. That's how I see it.
Well, okay. And the soul is eternal, like it comes back.
It's eternal, exactly. It's eternal, but forever unfolding and evolving. Whereas the real self is changeless, infinite, and perfect, but it's forever unfolding as the soul, as another way you could say is our embodied consciousness is another way to think of it.
Okay, beautiful. So, Terrlyn, what do you have to say about the soul?
Well, I really love the way that Derek is explaining it. And so for me, I think about that soul being that I am the manifestation of God, right? I am the manifestation of all that's good and powerful and limitless. And I think about the soul as being that inner knowing part of me that no one else can touch. Mm-hmm. That it is this deep connection that I have with the divine. And it's all about my relationship with the divine, however that is that people define that. But for me, I call it God, source, just an inner knowing, even my sacred intelligence, as I often refer to. And it's that part of me that lets me know that I am more than who the world thinks that I am, and even who I might think I am in those really vulnerable moments, right? Questioning moments. But I always go back to the knowingness and that I am eternal and I'm connected with something much higher than myself. And I'm connected with every other soul that is in this realm at this particular time. And even my ancestors and the others who've gone on as well. Like we are all just interconnected with one another. So that's how I see the soul.
And I love what you said, that it's even more than you think you are.
Yes. Yes, because I don't have that mind of supreme wisdom, right? But I can tap into that whenever I connect with the deeper part of who I am. And I must always remember that.
Absolutely beautiful. So we always have the ability to tap into that place of the soul. So Jose, what can you add to this?
Wow. Why do I have to be last?
I'll let you go first next time.
Okay. Those were beautiful, beautiful explanations. And what I find is how personal they are. How we have our own kind of like maybe relationship with soul. But, to me, the soul, I'll start with the simple aspect of it. I think it's like our guardian angel. It's my gatekeeper. I think it's that tiny voice that I hear guiding me sometimes, kind of trying to help me along. But if I look at it through the lens of my experience, right, my NDE, I get a sense that the soul is independent of my spirit, right? Existing as an unknowable interface between our humanness and spirit, the creator or the God of your belief, right? And to try to describe that, I don't believe the soul exists in here. I think the soul is right here. It's around me, right? And then spirit is everything else. So the soul taps into spirit, that eternity, that infinity, that aspect is, and is that harness between me and that. Because when I had my near-death experience, right, there was this moment that I had to let go of all the pain and the struggles and all those things that we have as human beings here that are negative. And it was purged. And when that was purged, it was like my soul let go of me. Lastly, I think our soul is colored by our humanness. It's touched by it. It's touched by our tenderness, by our weaknesses, by our capacity to love and fear even. And it's also touched by this creative force, by God, creator, however you perceive that, right? And if you imagine God or the creator as a ball of light, a little dot of bright, super light, the soul kind of acts like a prism and breaks that up. And then we see it as color around us. And to me, what a lot of people call an aura, your aura, is my soul. And it's being lit by creation, and it's being touched by me. And my experience of life shifts it a little, colors it a little, but I think it's governed by the creation force, right? By that energy of God or the creator. So that's kind of like what it is to me.
And I think that your experience, your near-death experience, illuminated the color of your soul. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But my next question is, what is it that illuminates your soul? So actually, why don't I let Terrlyn go first, and then Jose, and then Derek for this one? What is it that illuminates your soul?
It's interesting because this conversation illuminates my soul. All of us having this conversation, and there are similarities, but then there's slight differences. And it shows the different ways in which we manifest something greater than ourselves. And so anytime I can connect with other individuals who are really thinking about how we can be our greatest selves, that illuminates my soul. It helps me to see the power that we have when we all come together and want to create something different. We're all here because we're interested in making the world a better place.
Mhm.
I want people to be transformed. And so I get so excited about that, whether I'm working with people individually and I just see something go off in them like a light bulb, it's an aha moment. That feeds my soul. It feeds my spirit because I believe that there's the manifestation of holiness in everybody. And that's not always easy to see, but I believe that it's possible. And if people could just tap into that, it just really, really makes me happy. And then on a day-to-day basis, what illuminates me when I'm not having these types of conversations is really taking the time to be with source, to be with myself, to go deeper into who I am and who source calls me to be. So whether that's walking a labyrinth or reading a book or looking at the sunset, the sky, my soul is fed through those activities. So I just love being in the presence of spirit, however that spirit is defined. And so it could be a conversation, but it's about taking the opportunity to recognize that I am in the presence of something that's much greater than I, and at the same time that I am a part of that greatness and that there's no separation from that greatness and me and you and Jose and Derek.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Right. So I'm going to let Jose go second this time, and Derek, you'll be the cleanup hitter.
Yeah. And Terrlyn, that line there where you said there's grace in every one of us, there's spirit, there's a divine in each one of us, even though sometimes hard to see, it was very well said. And thank you for that, for saying that. But I think the soul is fed from two components, right? And I think it has its access to spirit, to the infinite, to creation. And then I think it's fed, and a lot like you just said, Terrlyn, kind of like by our humanity illuminates it, right? It's through experience. It's what we live. It's through our relationship with loved ones, with family, with friends, the tragedies that we survive, the pain that we feel, the wonders of our life, just taking that breath. Oh my God. Such a simple thing, but it's the miracle that sustains my physical life. And the stars, like you said, color, everything we see, everything we touch, we hear. But I think we feed it mostly through our capacity to love, to breathe love, to be love. We are so empowered by the Creator to have the capacity for that. That's what I think we were created for, to experience this here. And I think that's, like, from my perspective as a human being, how I could feed soul and serve it best. And knowing that it's being fed by all this love through Creator, and then it's going to transfer it to me. And so I just look at it very simple. We got this gas tank full of love. Use it, leave it here. When you go back home, you want to be empty.
Wow. Okay. Amen to that. Oh, just got goosebumps. Okay. Mr. Rydall, how do you?
Yeah, what can I add to all that? I think where you went there finally is, and increasingly I've discovered for me, is it's all about love. And, through tragedy, the loss of my son, and through many challenges, at the end of the day, there was no amount of cleverness or anything in the world that could get me not only through that, but open me in an even bigger way, except to meet everything with love. And I think it's also important to think, for at least how I define love, I don't define it as just a sentimentality or even just an emotion, but I believe love is the force that meets the deepest need in every seed of creation and says to its beloved, what do you need to flower and to flourish? And then as it flourishes, life gets to come into its own more, God, or whatever we want to call it. And so I think in the same way, what illuminates my soul, and what I believe is one of the most powerful ways, is the same thing, and what causes the seed to grow, which is you have to care about it, you have to know it, you have to feed it, you have to shine light on it, you have to give it your attention, you have to love it. And the trick for me, and I think for us as humans, is we've been hypnotized most of our life to think what matters most is matter instead of what matters. And so we've been hypnotized from the moment we were a child with things outside of us. Look over here, look over here. And so we've fallen in love with the artifacts of the soul, perhaps, but haven't understood where our real source and our real home and our real love lies. And so you have to be interested in the soul to illuminate it. You have to care about the soul to illuminate it. Whatever you deeply care about and are deeply interested in grows. Whatever you appreciate, appreciates. And I remember this one story about these two monks walking along, and the young monk was talking to the master monk, and he's like, I just want to know God. I want to know God. I want to know the soul. I want to know God. How do I do it, master? How do I do it? And he was always asking these questions. He was sincere. Finally, the master just had enough and took him and plunked him underwater and held him there until he was about to drown. And at the last moment, he lifts him up, and the young monk goes, like the gasp of air that saves his life. He's like, Master, why did you do that? And he says, when you want to know God as much as you wanted that next breath, you will have it. And so for me, in my journey, the more I've realized that the source of everything I could ever really want and everything that truly matters is within me, within my soul, and I've loved it and wanted it that much, that's been the medicine that has healed me, and also the miracle grow that has caused my soul to unfold and to light up.
Thank you for that, Derek. That was quite
That
deep.
was extraordinary. And everything that all three of you have said, I fortunately have a piece of Kleenex here because you're all making me cry. And before I move on to the next question, because I want to talk about why we're so divided right now. But before we move on to that, is there anything else that any of you want to add that, like a modality that you might use that illuminates the color of your soul? Anybody want to share something? I'll just let you volunteer to go first, second, or third. If you want to share a modality that you use to illuminate your soul or the color of your soul.
Well, I will say one quick thing. I believe that we're not really in the world, but the world is in us. And the world is a Rorschach test that Shakespeare said it's a mirror, it's a stage. And that when we understand that all there is God or good or heaven or love, and it's like, where's Waldo? It's like peeking out everywhere. And we can tell. So a practice I do is a thing called the soul profile, which is to really know our soul and know ourselves, to look for the people that, as one example, that you truly admire, maybe are even jealous of, but they're just like, oh my God, Buddha, Jesus, Oprah, whoever it is. It could be anybody. And then ask yourself, what is it about them that I love so much or that I admire? And you can list the qualities like loving, generous, supportive. What about talents, gifts, abilities? Amazing speaker, so eloquent. What's the story of their life that speaks to you? Well, they are a person that represents, no matter what you've been through, you can always overcome, or whatever. And as you go through those questions, what are the qualities about them? What are their abilities that you love and admire? What is the message that their life means to you? You're not describing them, even though you might be right. You're describing, another way to call it is the light shadow, but it's basically the qualities and the potential of the seed of your soul is getting projected out there. it's projecting on all the things that you love and are attracted to, and also the things sometimes that you're, pushing away from. And if you do that, and then just imagine putting your name there and going, I, or my soul, as a being, as a soul being, I am, and then fill it in with the description you just wrote. Watch as it lights you up. Oh my gosh, like that circuit just connected. It's like, could it be true? Could I really be a lover? Could I really be this beautiful, amazing? Yes, that's your soul speaking to you. But it often has to speak to us through the things that light us up or turn us on or make us come alive. So that's a really good way to get in touch with your soul and also your deeper potential and purpose.
Mm. I want to just chime in a little bit, because when, I was thinking about one of the things I do is an I am meditation with people to kind of get them to go back inward. And it's a 3-part, because everything I do is around sacred, selfish, and shared relationships. And so I get people to tap into I am and what is I am. And since we were talking about this theme of love, I invite people to breathe in, I am loved unconditionally, and I am divinely created, because so many people have experienced trauma and what the outside world tells them that they're not used to tapping into their inner being, which I define as their sacred intelligence. So it's really similar, Derek, to what you're saying, is getting folks connected with their greatness and not look at the greatness of other folks, because we've all been sent here for a purpose. We chose to come at this time. And so we're in the right place at the right time. Do the work that we need to do. I can't do Derek's work. I can't do Jose's work or Debra's work, even though we're all similar in some of the work that we do, but show up as our authentic selves. And that's what the I am piece for me does, is it helps me to focus on my calling at this particular time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know what I could add to all that magic, but I'm going to try a little bit. I look at it from a very simplistic perspective, right? So a modality is, we think of it as a practice that's created, and we follow it, and we start at A and we end up at B. I think what the modalities that Creator has put in front of us are some of the most powerful that we can have, right? That is nature. I love to go into nature. I like to get my feet wet. I like to hear the sound of water, of the birds, of the wind. I think more intimately, it could be a touch, somebody touching your hug. The magic of a moment. Take that deep breath. That moment now becomes magical, and then to talk about love and what you were talking, Derek, I look at it from a perspective of, because of the experience I had, there was a moment when I was out of body and I looked at myself with so much love. And I realized that my children, people that I know, when they looked at me, with this look in their eye, you could see the love they held for you. And there was a magical moment there where I learned, oh my gosh, I missed all of life. I missed all of life. It just got by me. All these moments that were happening, that sunrise that you talked about, Terrlyn, and all those things that were happening that have this power, this energy, and it's transferred to you. And I think that's kind of like the way I see it, because when you see that love in that child's eyes or somebody else's eyes, you're not only seeing into their soul, you're seeing yours. It's a mirror, it's a reflection. And you touched on that, Derek, of that kind of reflective capacity. So to me, I have a modality that I use called inner immersion that does a lot of these things. But taking a breath is a modality. Drinking a glass of water when you're thirsty, wow, how that feels magic. You know, all those simple things that we look at that we don't even pay attention to, that's the modality. I believe that we're always in that immersive space, I call it. We're always there. It's, do I see it? Or do I see this? Do I see these things in front of me as things? You know, because I look at, when I think of color, for example, we refer to color as an adjective. It should be a noun.
Mm-hmm.
To me, color is as alive as I am. It's a thing. It's a living being, and we look at things as things, and that creates a tremendous distinction. And once we do that, we create that separation. We're separated. It's a thing. But when we go outside into that nature and we feel that the caress of Mother Earth under our foot, and how I feel the energy of the entire earth and everything on it, it humbles you. It makes you feel special. It makes you feel wonderful. And more importantly, it makes you feel alive.
Amen. Hallelujah. Pass the plate.
Totally.
Living is the modality for living.
Exactly.
You know, Deborah, if I
That's
could
modality.
say one thing when Jose is talking about the living is the modality, and I love that we're talking about love, because if each of us would just really remember that we are love, and we are loved. And if we could walk around the earth like that, that is what would make the world a better place. I find that most people don't even feel like they're loved. So how can they even extend love to anyone else? But if we could just remember, we are love. We are love. That's the modality that you're talking about, Jose. Right?
That is the modality. And the thing about it is, what do we need the most? We need to be loved. I want somebody to hold me, to love me, to say, oh, but I need to get that back.
Yes.
And I feel like that, we all have, there's the languages of love. And I think it's important, as people are listening, we all have our unique pathway or circuitry to our experience of love and connection. And I love one, and the ultimate experience of it is what you said, Jose, it's to feel fully alive. When you're fully in love, you are fully alive. And that's all we're seeking, is that experience, even if we think it's what's other things are required. But I remember I think it's a quote by Howard Thurman, who was Dr. King's teacher. And he said, don't ask what the world wants, ask what makes you come alive, and do that. Because what the world needs are people who have come alive.
Mm-hmm.
And that, or in the Bible, it says, be ye not conformed to the world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, or of your soul, or your heart. And so, like, all of these are different approaches that we know make us come alive, which illuminates our soul, which gives us access to the life and the love and the generative nature of our beings. And if we all just find our own unique path to illuminating, to coming alive, there'll just be more life. And wherever there's more life, there's more love, there's more good. Everybody wins.
True. And life and love start with an L and end with an E. So I think in the middle is what we make of it.
Yes.
It's up to us to paint that final painting. And there's so much beauty and grace in what you're all speaking to. Well, I'm loving this. I'm loving this conversation. This is beautiful.
I wanted to quote from Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, who says, love is not an emotion, it's your very existence.
Yes.
But so I just want to bring up something that has been on my mind, and I think all of our minds so much lately. We are so clear that love is the answer. But why are we so divided? Why don't we see each other as soul beings and not judge by the color of our skin, and instead judge each other or see each other by the beauty of our souls or the color of our soul? Anybody want to comment on that?
And may I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just going to go back to my experience where I was completely out of body. And I realized that I'm not this. I'm a lot more. And I think when I came back, when I was able to come back into body, there were two things that happened to me, and I felt really bad. The first one was I said to myself, man, were you such a bad person that heaven kicked you out? That was the first thought, right? The second one was a very simple thought, was like, I felt like I was in a prison. I was back in my body, and I didn't have that sense of oneness that I had experienced. And I think that's really where the crux of this is because we're in here. We feel we're in here. We think we're in here. I still believe I'm out here, but we think we're in here. We feel we're distinct and separate from everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the cause of it. And I think we're taught since we're very little that things have value, right? And then we grow up thinking that. So if I get a car that has value, if I got a house that has value, and then people look at me different. So if I have 5 degrees, people look at me, and we keep climbing up that ladder of acceptance or whatever we call it here. And I think that's really where the problem lays. If we only knew what we really were,
Mm-hmm.
if we ever took a moment to sit back and just feel that moment, just one, it's all you need to do to tap into source.
Mm-hmm.
And then all these things, believe me, from personal experience, you can't take a cent with you, but you can take memories. And if you make good memories, if we task ourselves to make good memories, we would never be divided. If we started thinking about ownership and having something, and instead of thinking of sharing, I think the world would really move in a very different direction. And we have the power to push that arrow in that direction. It's got to be less about us. I mean, I think about people, some people that have a lot. And in my mind, you were just talking about love. We were just talking about love. Maybe they think that the more they have, maybe somebody will love them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like a lot of the things that we do here in life to kind of be recognized, to be seen, to be heard. We feel invisible. We feel lost. We feel like, who knows I'm here? And I think we want to answer that by claiming things. And when we begin to claim things, it creates this division. This is mine. This is not yours. This is, and then that person will say, no, that's mine. And I think it creates where we are today. It creates that. And then thinking that we have the power to take something away from someone else and claim it is only of my human component. The spirit and the soul would never take something that's not theirs, if there's anything that's ever yours. And so I'll just leave it there. So I'm really excited to hear what you both have to say.
As am I, but that was beautiful, Jose. It actually reminded me of what Derek said at the beginning, that we're hypnotized to believe that, what was it? What matters most is matter. I'm quoting you for that one.
Matter versus what matters. And what's interesting is what actually forms matter is what we make matter. From a quantum physics level, your matter is just a bunch of atoms, but they only get organized through intelligence or consciousness. So what you make matter actually forms the matter of your life. And that's, and if you believe you're a separate person, if you believe life is merely material and quantitative and empirical, and everybody has to have a scorecard, or, whatever the case may be, there's so many ways we could go with this. If that's what you're conditioned and hypnotized into, which most of us are, and all of us are to some extent, then what is going to matter in that matrix is having better matter or getting rid of the bad matter by your judgment. Goes back to the Garden of Eden, eating of the belief in good and bad of two powers. There's good stuff and bad stuff. Therefore, there must be good people and bad people. Therefore, my whole drive is craving and aversion. Get more of the good, get rid of the bad. That whole belief in that there's life plus. This is one party, there is no plus one.
Mm-hmm.
There's one. And but the belief that there's one plus, there's God and, there's good and, there's me and, that is the substance of the whole fabric of human suffering. And so the only way to heal it, the only way to resolve it, is to find a way to let go of the belief and truly embody the truth that we are one. And one of the specific practices that I kind of touched upon, which is understanding that we're not in the world is really in us. We're not moving around in materiality, we're moving around as a point of awareness in consciousness. And we're experiencing that on the wall of the cave, as Plato would say. And that if we can accept that, if you can feel even a little bit of resonance of the truth, that what you're seeing, we already know this from quantum physics, we know this from hypnotism, you are not seeing the world or anybody as they are, we're seeing it as we are, through the filters of our own belief and perception. And therefore, whatever pushes or pulls us is some projection of an integrated part of us. And then you can begin to get trigger happy. Oh, I'm triggered, yay. And it's like, now I can meet those places. Jesus said, love your enemy. Where's the enemy? In your household. What does that mean metaphysically? Your own mind, your own consciousness, your own heart. So now I can go, oh, thank you for showing me where I hate this part of me, where I don't think I have this part of me. Thank you. Now I can hold that part of me and hear that part of me and understand that part of me and meet its deepest need, which is love. I can be self-loving. I can feed the true needs of my heart and soul, which is to be heard, to be held, to be seen, to be known, and to have a true need met. And then one by one, all the fragments of my soul, which is also psyche, are like, like all those little moments as children, and all of us were children. We didn't get heard, we didn't get seen, we got lost in the matrix. They start to come back, and you end up developing the heart of God, and now you become unbotherable. Now you see all the stuff going on, and all you have is love and compassion. And if there's some greater idea that needs to come through you, it could be righteous fire, it could be speaking truth to power, but it's as Gandhi said, you're love the sinner, hate the sin. You're loving because you understand it's not personal, it's a pattern. Everybody is innocent, but we've all been hooked by some not so good code. We've all been hooked by a pattern. And I'll just finish with this. It's like the story of, there's a school of fish swimming along, and one of them is a real jerk. And he's just hitting everybody, and he won't listen to reason, and they try to love him and pray for him and do all this stuff to make him better. And he just will not listen. And they're finally like, we're done with you, man. And they just swim off, only to reveal he's been caught on a hook. And he's just flailing about, trying to get off the hook. And we're all just flailing about. We're all just hooked. And so forgive us, for we know not what we do. And that doesn't mean condone bad behavior. It just means if you have to put them in jail, you may have to close the bars on the jail, but you do not have to close the door of your heart.
That's right. I'm ready to come to Derek's church.
Holla and preach.
You all have said such valuable things here. I think there are just three quick things I want to say, and just picking up off of what each of you have said. When Jose was talking before, I was thinking about the importance of remembering who we were before we ever entered this realm. And I think one of the things that happens is that people forget that they've had a conversation with the Creator. They've had a conversation with themselves before coming here. And we get here, and it's like Derek was talking about, we begin to get caught up in the world. We are not transformed by the renewing of our minds, but we're just caught up in whatever the world says. And so I think it's important for us to remember who we are. The second thing I want to say is, since you mentioned Howard Thurman, he's one of my favorite theologians. Over 30 years ago, or nearly 30 years ago, I received a book called Deep is the Hunger by Howard Thurman. In that book, he talks about a sense of self. And it is important for us to go back to heal ourselves, because otherwise we can't do what we need to do out in the world. And that's why we other people, it's all this power hungry stuff that each of you have talked about. But going back to determine who we are, knowing fully who we are, it actually helps us to do the third thing, which is embrace other people. And that's what gets to the oneness. The oneness isn't about that, we all have to be uniform in everything we do. There's a difference between unity and uniform, right? We need to be unified by accepting and understanding. I know that I believe more in the power of God by understanding Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and all of that, and not just sticking to my Christian beliefs, because we're all just trying to get back to the same place. And that's that place of home where the ultimate and supreme love is. So why do we look at other people and other them? Is because we are in such desperate need of remembering who we are and whose we are. So
Debra, can I just say one quick thing? That was so beautiful. You just brought back something so relevant. There was a moment when I was on the other side, when I was out of body, and I saw myself dead, and I heard a voice say to me, you need to say goodbye to your body. And it was the first time in my life that I ever looked at myself and I saw perfection. My body was perfect. No matter how I judged it, because I didn't judge it well during life. I was never good enough. I was always whatever. There was always something wrong. I never saw the beauty that it held. And there was so much beauty. And I think what I want to tell everybody out there is understand, when we talk about the vision and all this that we're talking about, your body sacrifices itself for you to live this life. It gives itself up for you. It does everything for you. You think you want to do this, you get hungry, you do this. It does what you tell it to do faithfully. And then it gives up when it can't anymore, and you have to move on. But love yourself was the message. I got to love me so I can love everything else. Because if I can't love me, how can I love? And I think that was a life changer for me, because it made me look at life through the lens of everything that's being given to me. Every second that I have all these things in front of me, that's a gift. And I need to take time to appreciate it. And if we did that, there would be no division. We would share our food. We would share everything we have. If we had 10 bedrooms, fill them up with people that don't have any. We would be so different. But I think we have to get through this process. I think a program like this is going to help people get there. And the beautiful words that we hear right here from these beautiful people that are on here is breathtaking. You guys are breathtaking, I got to tell you.
And I so agree. And Jose, you are breathtaking. I just love you so much. And we only have a couple minutes left. So if each of you could just say just a sentence or two, maybe just take 1 minute of wrap up, any other comments you want to make on Birthing a New World by Illuminating the Color of Your Soul. Whoever wants to go first.
Sure, I'll say a couple of quick things. One of the key principles, as I understand and have experienced and the great masters have taught, is that the kingdom of heaven is within us. Reality, nirvana, the storehouse of infinite riches, everything we want is already within us. We brought it with us. And therefore, the only way to have more come into our life is to find a way to let more life come out of us. As the poet Robert Browning said, to release the imprisoned splendor. And so giving and serving and sharing is the magic secret to having more and more and more than enough. And, one of the belief of Jesus when he multiplied the loaves and fishes was not so much that he manifested it out of nothing, but that his consciousness of love and generosity was so strong a field that all the rich people in the crowd who had way more than they needed were so moved by a sense of wholeness that they shared everything they had. And as a result, everybody had more than enough. So we don't have to even think of it in a woo-woo way. But I just want you all to know that if we want to have a world that works for all, starting with asking what appears to be missing, and then deciding to start giving that. First, make sure you include yourself in that. Us heart-centered people often forget that piece, and you're breathing out all day without breathing in. But start giving what appears missing and watch how the baskets overflow and are multiplied.
Amen. 1 minute from Jose or Reverend Doctor.
Well, I just want to chime in because Derek has mentioned Jesus a couple of times. And the problem with most people, and I can say this as a pastor who's preaching to people every Sunday, is that they don't believe that they have the power of Jesus. And Jesus said, you can do even greater things than I. And what folks forget is that Jesus actually just showed us the way to tap into our power source. But again, it goes back to what you were saying before. People think it's something outside of ourselves. That's one thing I want to say is just believe that you have the power to do exactly what Jesus and other mystics have done. The second thing is, I believe in a concept called Ubuntu. I am because we are, and we are because I am. Know that the only way that we can ever become whole and complete is to embrace one another and to know that you're not alone. There are people who are out here who will support you and help you walk whatever journey that you're on.
Wow. Well, I just want to say something very simple. I think there's only one breath that speaks to my life. That first breath I take when I'm born and that final gasp when I go home. In between that, all this happens. And if I look at it from that perspective, and I ask myself, what am I doing to contribute to what's going on in this world? Mm-hmm. I think that's what a lot of us don't do. What am I doing? I don't care how good we are. I don't care how great we are. That's not about that. It's how am I contributing? And if we pivot a little and be more graceful, be more forgiving, be more kind, be more understanding, be more appreciative, be more loving, the world can only go to one place. And that's into the cradle, the hands of God or the Creator. It'll be that. And I don't think it's very difficult for us to do because, in life is tough. Life isn't easy always. There's always things that happen unexpected. There's all kinds of stuff that are out of our control, or control that we think we have because we really don't control anything. But if we're able to look at it for what it is, look at who we are, look at us as something that's beautiful, look at us as something that's loving, look at us as something that can change. Yes, I did that wrong, but I could change. Yes, I can forgive. You did that to me, but I can forgive. If we could do those simple things, the world can only go to one place. And I can't wait to get there.
Amen. And wow. So I want everybody listening, just take a breath right now.
I think we need it.
Yes. And as we come to the end of this program, I want to invite each person listening to stretch to the limit of your oneness. If we all lived in a place of love, like these incredible beings who we heard today, we could definitely birth a new humanity, and our children and future generations are counting on us. So thank you. It is so clear why so many people turn to the three of you for wisdom and guidance, and as to how to make the planet work for everyone. So thank you to the three of you. And
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, all of you.
Thanks, Deborah. And
Thank you.
Derek and Terrlyn, I love to stay in touch with you. You guys are amazing,
Absolutely.
beautiful people. Deborah, you know how I feel about you.
Yes.
thank you to everyone participating in the summit who has the desire to make oneness a reality for our planet. We can only do this together.
Yes.
We send our love to all of you.
Yes. Namaste.
Much love.